came up from underneath and grabbed a championship that seemed like it was in the Pats' back pocket. Not literally, but most people going into both those games picked the Patriots. And I will say that the Giants in those games are one of the teams that really stayed true to the identity of the team, which is a big reason why they won those games. You've got Sean McVay was just out coached in every aspect of the game this season, without doubt. And you've just got to hope now that as our two New York football teams rebuild and reload and try to refocus, that we're going to be one of the teams, the next team to snatch up and grab it from the Patriots, and hopefully end this dynasty and end this run. But it's not going to stop until you know Tom Brady and Bill Belichick have been thoroughly beaten, because I don't see them hanging it up really anytime soon, and willingly just giving the mantle to another team. And even after Brady leaves, if Belichick sticks around, which the big question will be who leaves first, and if one does leave, does the other one stick around? So, there's a lot of questions to be answered there in the next couple of years for the Patriots. But right now, uh, I do want to just focus real quick on the Jets and the Giants before we shift focus to the second half of the show. As the Jets and the Giants right now, the Jets have a new coach and around $100 million in cap room. They recently completed their new coaching staff hirings too. Which, if you haven't heard about it, it's got a brand new reality show written all over it. As it's got this interesting, perhaps combustible element of Greg Williams, the new defensive coordinator, who I'm a big fan of, and I do think he's going to bring a certain bite and edge to the Jets' defense that they've definitely lacked since really Rex Ryan left, and even didn't have the last year or two Ryan was the coach. But Adam Gase hired his father-in-law, Joe Vitt, to work with Greg Williams on the defensive side of the ball. And it's not like this is unheard of, because Joe Vitt has been in the NFL in the past. In fact, he was the interim head coach for the New Orleans Saints the year in 2012. After he finished serving his, I believe, 6-game suspension, he took over interim head coaching duties for the suspended Sean Payton of the New Orleans Saints that year. And Vitt was vilified by people like Greg Williams, though, because he testified against Williams in the fallout from the Bountygate scandal that resulted in all of those suspensions. So, it's something that we're gonna have to see how this plays out. Supposedly they're back on the same page and they've buried the hatchet and they've forgiven each other and put in their differences in the past. But it's something that you do have to keep an eye on, because if the wheels start to fall off or if things start to get tough, we could see those two button heads at some point. And the scary thing is, though, who do you think that Adam Gase is going to remain loyal to? His father-in-law or some coach that he really doesn't know anything? So we could end up with Joey Vitt as the Jets defensive coordinator at some point down the line, but let's just hope they work together and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But also, Gase did make a concession and hired Greg Williams' son, Blake, who's going to be a defensive assistant. So, this is all, it's all in the family now, and we're going to see what the deal is. As, like I said, this could either be really great or it could be a bad reality show. And maybe, just maybe, the Jets will end up on Hard Knocks on HBO again this year, which I hope not, because that could only prove to be a distraction. But I could definitely see it, because there's a lot of there's a lot of intrigue with this Jets coaching staff and the team, and altogether they got a lot of money to spend. They got a couple of high draft picks, so it's going to be interesting to see how they plot out the next couple of weeks and months. And so also, just to wrap it up, the Jets picked up former Lions offensive coordinator Jim Bob Cooter, who was hired as running backs coach. He really didn't receive high marks as a play caller in Detroit. Luckily for the Jets, that's not going to be his job. He's going to be the running backs coach, coaching up guys. Obviously they're running backs, and it's. I think it's good. The Jets are going to have more experience in the coaching room. Jim Bob Cooter was a big time college coach at one point. Now he comes to the NFL. He's been here. He worked at Matthew Stafford for the last 5 years in Detroit, being their offensive coordinator. I think for at least a year, maybe two. But for the last 5 years, he's worked there. He was their quarterbacks coach before that. So he's seen the good and the bad and the ugly from Matthew Stafford. So even though he's technically a running backs coach, I do think that it's going to be good to have another guy in that offensive room that is going to be at least potentially have an impact on Sam Darnold and help his development in any way possible, which is the main key. It's the key to everything right now. Adam Gase and all of his coaches, his offensive ones at least, and uh, Sam Darnold are all joined at the hip. They're joined at the hip right now, whether they like it or not, and um, that's the path the Jets are on. Mike McCagan, this new Jets coaching staff led by Adam Gase, and this entire franchise now knows that this team is in the hands of this young head coach and this 21-year-old quarterback, and we're really gonna see if that is gonna play out well this year. They're gonna have to go out and get him some you know whether it's offensive line help or I'm hearing that the Jets are really thinking about Bosa if he falls in the draft. They're gonna have a chance to go out in free agency and, like I said earlier, spend that money and really do everything that they know that they have to do to nurture and bring along this young, now no longer a rookie heading into his second year, this young quarterback. And I really think that the Jets are on the right track. I think that I've come around a little bit on this Adam Gase hiring. I wasn't quite sure early on. Um, I almost fainted when I first read the news, and but sometimes you've got to take your emotions and put it aside. Sure, I would have loved Mike McCarthy. I said it on this program multiple times since the new year and since the hiring, and um, it's something that you just have to live with. And I'm not the guy that's getting paid to make the decisions right now. I've just got to analyze them for you all, and I've got to live with it as a fan. And I think that Adam Gase has the potential to do very well in this city. But like I said earlier, there's also that potential with this coaching staff and with the uncertainty around this team that, and even the ownership, because you still don't really know, is Christopher Johnson calling, is he calling the shots? Because if that's the case, I don't know. This is the same people that gave Todd Bowles a 2-year extension last year, and that's when everybody knew that as much as you may have or may have not liked Todd Bowles, everybody knew that he was not the answer here, coming into this year at least. You wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt for as long as you could, but after back-to-back 5-11 years, did it really take a third 5-11 season to convince the Jets that this guy isn't the answer heading forward? So that's the only thing that kind of makes me nervous. Um, Also, another thing too is that the Jets recently released their center they signed last year for big money. They signed it for $28.5 million. It sucks. Now he's going to be a free agent, and the Jets have another position to fill. And this is another thing too, where you have to say that's the Jets had money last season just as well as they do this year, and Mike McCagan spent $28 million on a guy who's not even on this team. He gave him a 4-year contract. He barely lasted the full year. I will give a pass to him though. Spencer Long, we're talking about here, the former center of the New York Jets. I will give him a pass though, because the guy was injured late in the season. He was going out there and trying to play as much as he could, even though he had a hurt hand and couldn't properly snap the ball. And I think he played very well when he moved to guard, but not for the money that they were supposed to be paying him. So I wouldn't mind seeing him come back at some point at a lower price and a reduced role maybe. But I think Spencer Long earned a lot of Jeff fans' respect. And before the break here, I was gonna keep it short and get into the Giants. Maybe we'll get into the Giants in the second half. There's really not much to say beyond Haskins, wanting to be their quarterback. and there's a lot to get to with them. But you know, I will say this though that seeing Spencer Long and the way the Jets have struggled with the center position since really since Mangold left after 2016 is another thing that I just want to say. Congratulations to former Jets center and new Hall of Fame member for the NFL, Kevin Mawai. He really started a over or just about 20-year run. And I know the Jets had great centers before that too. And if I was an older man, I'm sure I could run down the list for you. But as for the last 20 years, I could say I've seen two of the best. Um, Kevin Mawai was the pinnacle of professionalism, and he was the exact guy that you needed to bring that offensive line together for the '98 team and the 2002 team, both division champions, the only division championships this team has won since the merger in 1970. Think about that. He was a staple on that '98 team, the playoff team in '01, the division champion team in '02, the other playoff team in '04. Kevin Mawai did so much for this team. He played an AFC Championship game here. Could have been a Super Bowl if they hadn't been if they hadn't choked out that 10-0 lead against a terrific Broncos team with the Hall of Fame quarterback and Hall of Fame running back and tons of Hall of Famers all over that team, including the head coach. Um, so I just want to tip my cap to Kevin Mawai, say thank you, and it was great to see him and the guy that followed him up, Nick Mangold, really come together and talk the last couple of weeks. And Nick Mangold, too, I hope he stays around. You're going to see his number in the Ring of Honor. I was glad they did it with Kevin Mawai a year or two ago, so now he's in the Hall of Fame. Hopefully, somewhere down the road, maybe you'll get Mangold and D-Brick and a couple of those other guys are going in. Another ex-Jet, Alan Faneca, is going in the Hall of Fame. He was terrific for the short time he was here. So got a couple of those guys going in the Hall of Fame. It's really interesting seeing those guys go in. So congrats to the Jets and congrats to the Patriots for the new champs. And we'll see what's going on. We got NFL free agency coming up in a couple of weeks, so there's a lot to get to with that as well. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be taking our first break of the day. Thank you for sticking with me right here on Sports Talk 1240. We got a lot to get to in the second half, including your calls. Don't forget to give me a call at 516-623-1240. Give me a call at some point. I'll definitely take your calls if you give me a ring, and I'll talk to you in a couple of minutes. Thank you for sticking with me.
Listening to Sports Talk 1240 on Long Island's AM 1240. WGBB.
Country Foot Care, official podiatrists of the New York Lizards, have been delivering state-of-the-art foot care with good old-fashioned caring to Long Island residents for over 30 years. Specialists in sports medicine and foot injuries, Country Foot Care can be reached at 516-741-FEET or online at countryfootcare.com.
Want to advertise your business on Sports Talk 1240? Place an ad on SportsTalk1240.com and run a radio commercial during the show every Sunday night here on AM 1240 WGBB. Our rates are very affordable. We'll even produce the radio commercial for you. Just head over to SportsTalk1240.com and fill out the Contact Us form and let us start promoting your business today.
Unflippable, unflappable, unleakable. The Gusbuster is the only umbrella that won't flip inside out, rip, tear, or leak, capable of withstanding winds over 55 miles per hour. All of our umbrellas are constructed of the finest quality materials and backed by a limited lifetime guarantee. What are you waiting for? Visit Gusbuster.com and get your Gusbuster today. Stay connected to Sports Talk 1240 by following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You're listening to Sports Talk 1240. Broadcasting Sunday night between 8 p.m.
Jim, okay. I'll get them in a couple of minutes.
Sure. I'll listen for your cue.
Okay, thank you.
Now back to the show.
All right, thank you for sticking around with me, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm your host, Rob Cramer. And right now, this is This Day in Sports History. This day in sports history, on February 10th, 1920, Major League Baseball announces the addition of new rules which outlaws all pitches involving that tampers with the ball, meaning specifically pitches like the spitball, were no longer able to be thrown after this date in 1920. On this date, February 10th, 1969, LSU's pistol Pete Maravich scores a school record 66 points, despite his team losing to Tulane 101-94. And on this date, February 10th, 1984, Mets and Keith Hernandez agree to a 5-year, $8.4 million contract. This contract would end months of speculation as to Hernandez's future and set the stage for 5 more Gold Gloves, All-Star appearances, and a World Series title. And on February 10th, 1989, to gain deregulation from state regulated authorities, the WWF formally admits in court that they are entertainment and not a true sporting competition. This was admitted to a New Jersey court on this date in 1989. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the Super Bowl is over. The NFL season has passed us by. And did you win big? I did, because I went to betdsi.com. BetDSI is an A-plus rated sports book, and it's been around since 1998. In the last 20 years, they've built an impeccable reputation for great service and fast payment, combined with an excellent mobile interface so you can play, win, and get paid anywhere, anytime. And if you sign up for a new account and use my promo code COFFEE100, BetDSI will double your money up to a $500 deposit. I had a great year picking games and kept that going last week. And if you heard my Super Bowl special with special guest Gino Bisconti on the Coffee with Kramer podcast, you already know that I took the Patriots minus 2.5 and finished this year on a winning streak. I went 7-2 in the NFL playoffs and 23-8 overall this season. Don't forget, just because the NFL season's over doesn't mean that the fun stops at BetDSI. You can bet on all kinds of stuff like the NCAA, MLB, NBA, NHL, boxing, UFC, and more. You can even bet on politics. Don't stand on the sidelines. Just check them out at betdsi.com. That's betdsi.com. And use our promo code COFFEE100 to double your bankroll today. Thanks, BetDSI. All right, and thanks for sticking around with me on Sports Talk 1240 here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Rob Cramer, and don't forget you can follow me on Twitter at Kramer New York and see everything I got going on. But right now, I'm gonna go to the phones and I'm gonna take our first call of the night from our friend Jim. Jim, how you doing?
Yeah, hi, you too, Clem.
Hey, doing pretty good. Thanks for giving us a ring.
Sure. Listen, I understand sometimes I listen to your show and I love the way you do the sports and when you talk about Mets and Yankees and other teams. I understand that you sometimes go down to Florida to the season game. Mets.
Yes, that's true.
I've seen that on your post. Are you Mets going to be going down this year too?
Yes, as a matter of fact, actually, I was going to be announcing that soon on my Coffee with Kramer podcast. But I'll be going down probably after Patty's Day, which would probably be about March 20th or so. And I'm going to be doing a live show from there. I've got to work it out. I got to talk to a couple of the guys here on this show. I might be doing some content on this show, Sports Talk 1240, but there will definitely be live content on my podcast, Coffee with Kramer. And thanks for giving us a call, Jim. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll be going down this year too. Maybe I'll see you down there. I love the show. I love your insight on sports. I love sports talk, and I love the way you put on the show. Good job for a young kid. You sure know enough of sports.
Well, thank you very much, Jim. You must be a dangerously insane human being if you like listening to my show that much. But thank you very much. I'm just kidding. I appreciate the call. And thank you, Jim. Give us a call anytime here on Sports Talk 1240.
You're awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, buddy. And so now, if you want to be like Jim and give me a call, you can call me up at 516-623-1240. That's 516-623-1240. And, just to keep things rolling along here, I want to get into one of the hottest teams that we have in New York right now. That would be the New York Islanders, as they continued their dominance with another close game, another win today, 2-1. They won their two previous outings in a shootout, 2-1 over Jersey, in Jersey. And then they won the game before this against Colorado 4-3 in overtime. Uh, Winning this game 2-1 today means they swept the weekend back to back, and they improved to 9-0 this season in back to backs. They opened the game with a wrist shot from their first star, Anthony Bouvier, and they were on the board 1-0 at that point. They held on to win this game 2-1. The Isles improved to 33, 16, and 6. They are currently in first place in the Metro with 72 points, and the Isles continue to show they're really a real threat in this division. Most people, most people really feel too with this Islanders team that Robin Lehner really set the pace and set the tone in goal this year, which in a lot of respects he has. The guy has just been incredible for a 27-year-old to really come out of nowhere, and with his injury history too. He's played incredible under Barry Trotz this year. 17, 8, and 4, leads the league with a 93 save percentage, and also leads the league with a 205 goals against. Thomas Greiss is 15 and 8. 92%, 233 goals against, so he's hanging right in there. It's not all about Leonard, but man, Grice really showed how good he was today too, and another 2-1 clutch win. For the rest of this week, now the Isles go to Buffalo and Columbus. Really, two very good teams. Head coach Barry Trotz has them playing great, and this team really should be more than ready to go after this week. I think that Barry Trotz is going to have them motivated. It's really crazy to see everything this team has done without what's his name? Without John Tavares. I'm already forgetting his name this year. So really, just a hats off to Barry Trotz. And as a matter of fact, we'll get back to the Islanders in a moment. But I believe we have royalty on the line right now, and this guy, Big Vinny from the Bronx. Vinny, I remember you calling in to WFAN all the way back in the day with the days of Doris calling in to shows like Steve Summers or Ann Ligori or anything like that. And Vinny, it's a pleasure to have you on the phone right now. Thanks for giving us a call, Vinny. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. So, Vinny, what do you got going on your mind? What's on your mind tonight? Is it the baseball hot stove? Is it the Super Bowl? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, you know what, Vinny? I'll start off with the Cespedes right now, as I just want to say, you know, don't count him out. That right-handed bat is looming. He's waiting in the wings. It would not surprise me for 1 second if he came back after the All-Star break when everybody counted him out, and he had a big second half that pushes the Mets, to the playoffs and beyond. Especially, don't forget that he's coming into this is not it, but he will be going into the walk year of his contract. So he's going to want to be ready and firing on all cylinders coming into next season. No doubt about that, in my opinion. Also, well, the earliest I've heard is the All Star break, but I think that's just them kind of putting, trying to dampen Met fans' hopes of when, like really try to make Met fans think, don't expect this guy back anytime soon. But I would say a realistic time for me would be August 1st. What do you think about that, Vinny?
If we can get that this back all this first, I think he's going to make room for the vision. I'd like to know who he's going to be having that fourth outfield spot. Who's going to be
Well, I
the outfield rotation that
well
replace him?
Juan Lagares is not going anywhere, and I think if we saw early in the season last year too, that Juan Lagares still has a little bit of that bat left. His injury history is disconcerting at best. But I think a good combination in center field of him and a guy everybody forgets about, the recently acquired Keon Broxton from the Milwaukee Brewers. Both of them are plus defenders who are really going to bring the Mets' defensive metrics up in the outfield without doubt. There's no doubt about it. As long as Lagares is healthy too, he'll accomplish that one way or another. And as long as they hit, as long as you get anything out of them, I think your corner spots are pretty good with Nimmo and Conforto. Um, you know, other than that, to really get to your other question about the number 5 starter is right now, unfortunately, it looks like we're looking at Jason Vargas as the number 5 guy. However, I do think that what's it called? That the Mets are still looking in on free agents such as Gio Gonzalez. Now, I personally would love seeing Gio Gonzalez pitch with the Mets, especially in a number 5 slot in the rotation where there's no pressure on him. You could probably get him for relatively cheap, as pitchers and catchers are due to report in a couple of days. I heard as of about a week ago or so that there's been open dialogue between the two, but it's not necessarily close on any money terms or anything like that. So what do you think about that, Vinny? Would you like seeing Gio as the 5 guy, or are you comfortable with Vargas?
Well, I think that we see the best that Jason Vargas is going to work with Jason Vargas, and I'm not so. I want to know if there's anybody else on the pipeline if we're going to start throwing back that Marcelo out there. Jason was as far as the sixth man because someone's going to go down with an injury, and I'm not that a big Vargas guy.
Yeah, I'm not a big Vargas guy myself, and you're pretty much, that's the one thing. That's why I think the Mets could really do themselves a favor by adding a starter here, or even a swingman. Because to be honest, if anybody goes down, you right off the bat, you're probably looking at a spot start from Seth Lugo, which I don't necessarily have that big a problem with. But I don't want to be bouncing Seth Lugo back and forth between the rotation and the bullpen. I'd kind of like to keep him in one role. One of the other guys, the kids they have they're looking at right now is a kid who pitched a lot last year, Corey Oswalt. I could definitely see him uh, playing a big role in, and he's definitely going to be in the Mets' top 7 when it comes to their rotation. And it really doesn't go much beyond that, to be honest.
Well, that's pretty good. But the last one up for you, Kramer, what do you expect that Gary Familia coming back for another go around?
Well, Vinny, first off, I just want to thank you for your call. Really, thanks for calling in, and give me a call anytime. I appreciate it, Vinny. But just to answer your question, I expect Jerry's Familia to resemble, if you recall, the Jerry's Familia season from 2014, when he was the setup man for, I think, LaTroy Hawkins and uh, Henry Mejia that season at one point. Hawkins might not have been in that team now that I think about it. But I think you can really look at a season like that for him, where I think part of the problem for Familia is that sometimes the moment got too big for him, as we saw in the World Series. I mean, sometimes he was able to shrug it off. If you saw after he took over in the NLDS in 2015 for uh, for Noah Syndergaard, when Syndergaard came in Game 5 and threw that one amazing shutout inning, and then Familia took over in the 8th and ninth, shutting it down, sending the Mets to the NLCS. But then when you see on the flip side, Game 1 of the World Series that same season, he throws that quick pitch, and it gets belted over center field by Alex Gordon. So I really expect to see him embrace the role of setup man. I think he loves being a Met. I think he's comfortable pitching in New York and pitching at Citi Field, and I don't think he would have come back if he didn't fully embrace that that role as a setup man and being that bridge that bridges the gap between whatever um, pitchers the Mets have in their pen, which would be Edwin Diaz in the ninth, and a guy like Justin Wilson who they just signed to be a left-handed pitcher. And by the way, I think Justin Wilson is a big signing for the Mets. You got to remember this guy's been on winning clubs in the past. He was a Cub last year. He's got a lot of playoff experience. He was a Yankee in 2015, so he's used to New York and the pressure that comes with it, and even more so than because he was playing on pinstripes on that side of town. So I got to say too that I do expect a big year from the bullpen. They're much improved, and Familia is going to be right in that mix. He's going to be a big guy, and I really appreciate that. And I just want to thank you again for that call, Vinny. That very intuitive because when it comes to the uh, the Mets, as much as um, Brody wanted to you know um, eliminate the ifs, which I think that's a really good game plan. I think it's a really good way to do it, way to attack your offseason, eliminate the ifs. But the thing that stinks is that it's just kind of unrealistic in a sense of there's always going to be ifs. You can try to eliminate as much as you want, which I guess was his goal in the first place. But there's sometimes you just can't get around the ifs. And right now there's a bunch of ifs. Center field is an if for the Mets. First base is an if for the Mets, and at least partially some of the guys in the bullpen are an if too. Although I think they really improved it by strides, and that's an understatement because their bullpen was among one of the worst. I think if you took all their numbers together last year, the Mets were 29th out of 30 teams in baseball last year. So that speaks for itself. Numbers can lie, but a lot of the times they don't. And last year they certainly did not. And thanks for the calls tonight, guys. I really appreciate it. Two great calls, Jim and Vinny. Can't thank you guys enough. And if you guys still, hey, I still got another 12 minutes or so. If you guys want to give me a ring, 516-623-1240. And just to get back to a little bit of hockey right now as we finish up, we're coming down the stretch here, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, just a terrific run the Islanders are on. The first place New York Islanders. Um, you really can't say enough about them as they're definitely a playoff team. I really can see this being the Islander team that uh, makes their first trip to the conference finals since 1993. You know, I could definitely see that. I'm not guaranteeing it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, that they couldn't get upset before then. But this Islanders team is one of the better teams that they've fielded in the last 15 years. Now, the thing that stinks about that, from my perspective, is that I'm a Rangers fan, and but I'm also a Rangers fan that's not afraid to tip his cap to the Islanders when they deserve it, and they certainly have deserved it this year. But I do want to turn the attention a little bit to my Rangers as they're in action right now. They lead the Toronto Maple Leafs 2-1 after two periods, about halfway through the second intermission, on the way to the third period right now, as Mika Zibanejad and Jimmy Vesey have netted the two goals to put this team ahead. Vesey's goal broke a 1-1 tie late in the second, as he got it from Kreider and Ryan Strome. I gotta say, former Islander Ryan Strome has played very well in a Rangers sweater this season. And but really, the main thing that I want to talk about, because obviously, from a Rangers perspective, this season, is kind of done. They got 54 points, and sure, they're in seventh place in their own division. They're 9 points out of a playoff spot, 7 points out of being the worst record in their conference. So, as the inevitable sell-off looms, and the last 2 years have been the worst at the Garden in the last 15 years, kind of the exact opposite what we're seeing from the Islanders this year. I would like to say that it was very fun and heartwarming to see on Friday night The New York Rangers honor their 25th anniversary of the 93-94 Cup championship team. Um, that was just this past Friday night. Unfortunately, the current Rangers couldn't match the thrill that seeing these championship Rangers in the building brought to them as they ended up losing that game 3-0 to a hungry Carolina team. So you really can't knock them that much. Carolina's a pretty good team, but it was great to see all the former Rangers there. Guys like, um, you know, Brian Leach, Mike Richter, Mark Messier, Adam Graves, former head coach Mike Keenan, Esa Tikkanen. It was great to see Esa Tikkanen, one of the great playoff Rangers of all time. Especially that 93-94 run, Esa Tikkanen was amazing. Sergei Zubov was there. And also, people forget, too, that 96 run the Rangers had when they ended up losing in the conference final to the Flyers. Esa Tikkanen matching up with Wayne Gretzky was one of the great combos that we've seen the Rangers have in recent memory. So, well, I guess it's not that recent if they're celebrating the 25th year, and this was just a year or two after that. But so it's as we were saying before, the inevitable sell-off, does loom over the Rangers' heads as guys like Matt Zuccarello, Kevin Hayes, and a few others really all are on the chopping block as the Rangers look to acquire assets in exchange for expiring contracts. It really stinks. The Rangers have seen youngsters like Philip Hedel and the currently injured Brett Howden take steps forward this year, but they really need to get more out of their former number one overall pick, the number 7 overall pick. It was number 1 for the Rangers, though. Elias Anderson. Right now, Anderson's sitting in the AHL as he just returned from an injury a game or two ago. He's played about 30 games there after playing in 20 or 25 earlier in the year for the Rangers as he broke camp with the team. But he's played 30 games there. His numbers are hardly eye-popping. It's about 6 goals, 9 assists. He's a 21-year-old kid, and he just needs to play better. Maybe part of that is staying healthy. But the Rangers do need to see more out of him. I'm not sitting here and telling you by any stretch of the imagination that this kid is a bust or he's not. He's not at all. It's a kid that is 20 years old that's learning the North American style of hockey. Um, I saw him in the World Juniors. I saw him in the AHL last year when he was healthy and had a long run down there. So he's going to be there, and that's going to really help the Rangers out down the stretch. He'll be coming up at some point. Um, Also, supposedly, Vitaly Kravtsov, the Rangers pick, the number 1 pick last year, who spent this entire season in Russia as the 18, 19-year-old kid, whatever he is. He's still a baby. And he's going to be coming over at some point from the Rangers in the next couple of weeks. As soon as the KHL season, that's the Russian Hockey League, finishes up, he should be over here, depending on if his team's in the playoffs or not, and however that goes. So it'll be nice to see potentially Hedel, Anderson, and Kravtsov all on the ice at the same time. The one thing that stinks, though, and it wouldn't have happened anyway because he's playing the season with his college hockey team, but Keandre Miller suffered a tough injury yesterday. Really, there's not much to report on yet. They really still haven't given the timetable. It looked to be a lower body injury, so those are always scary. So we'll just hope that Keandre Miller, the Rangers' former first-round draft pick, we just hope he's good to go, and this doesn't hurt his development at all. Another guy, Tony DeAngelo, scored the game winner in a shootout against Boston last week. Kid has serious skill, but just needs to control his emotions. And the Rangers have it all plotted out in front of them, as they don't have the playoff hopes of their crosstown rivals, the New York Islanders, but they do have hope for the future as they're starting to lay the groundwork for a lot of for what they're trying to accomplish in this team. And also, right now, we're down to the last couple of minutes, ladies and gentlemen, here on Sports Talk 1240 for the first hour Don't forget to stick around for Dr. Rob Freed, who comes on in just a couple of minutes. And the guys from Late Night Parent before were great too. It was great seeing them. Those guys are great. If you ever get a chance to listen to them Sundays at 9 o'clock, I saw them before the show. Those guys are great too. So don't forget to check out all the great shows here on WGBB. But real quick before we get out of here, I just want to give my comments on the Kristaps Porzingis trade to the Knicks. If you want to hear it in full, I've got my full video on YouTube on the Coffee with Kramer YouTube account. You can check out all my videos there that I have up, and you can check out all my stuff on coffeewithkramer.com. But for the Porzingis trade, uh, kind of shocked everybody. Came out of nowhere. The Knicks traded him to the Dallas Mavericks with Tim Hardaway Jr., Trey Burke, and Courtney Lee. The Knicks received in return Dennis Smith Jr., who was the guy they passed over in favor of Frank Ntilikina in the draft 2 years ago. They received the expiring contracts of center DeAndre Jordan and Wesley Matthews, who they've already moved on from, and I believe that he's set to join the Indiana Pacers. They also acquired two future first-round picks. It's either going to be 21 and 23 or 22 and 24. So the Knicks are stacking up assets right now. And just in short, as I'm running low on time here, I just want to say that it's frustrating to lose a guy like KP. I never wanted to give up Porzingis. I never wanted to see him move on from the Knicks. I wanted to give him a 5-year, $158 million max contract after this year, but he didn't even allow the Knicks to do that, as supposedly he was willing to play for a $4.5 million qualifying offer. To me, Porzingis comes off like a drama queen here. He was supposed to be the foundation, and unfortunately, it's not going to be the case, as Kristaps Porzingis has moved on to Dallas, and we've already seen some really great stuff out of Dennis Smith Jr. So if you're a Knicks fan, don't let this upset you. Stick with it. It's not the end of the world, and now they have the potential to bring in two max free agents in this offseason. And all right, ladies and gentlemen, that just about does it for me here on Sports Talk 1240. I really want to thank you for joining me here tonight. I want to thank my callers, Jim and Vinny. I want to thank everybody else for listening. This will be up on iTunes tomorrow, so check it out if you missed any of this show. Before I get out of here, too, I want to just say that this show tonight is in memory of my dog Duffy, as he passed away since the last time I did this show. And, my whole family misses him. He's a great dog. And I just want to say we miss you, Duff, and we love you. And now that's out of the way, thank you for joining me here again, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be back sometime in March. And stick with me. Check me out at Kramer New York on Twitter and coffeewithkramer.com. I'll talk to you next time.
The views expressed in the previous program did not necessarily represent those of the staff.